Well, I think that what we're seeing now is a complicated combination of risks, which have to do with increasing natural disasters, with underdevelopment, with disease, but also the fact that many people live in very insecure situations, and they're insecure because they might be in the middle of a conflict, because of human rights violation, because of violent crime like drugs in Mexico City. And I think the real problem today is that there are large parts of the world that are deeply, deeply insecure, and yet our security capabilities, which are based on military forces, conventional military forces, are completely ill-adapted for dealing with these situations. And I think what makes it particularly dangerous is that you get all kinds of new private actors rushing in to fill that gap. Whether you're talking about militias, organised crime, who are the obvious sources of violence, or very well-meaning new private security companies and NGOs who are all swarming to help. But the trouble is it's creating a kind of market in insecurity. Well, I think what is happening is that nation states are losing their monopoly of legitimate violence in the ways that I've been talking about. And I don't think it can be reconstructed any longer on a national basis. It has to be reconstructed at a global basis. And that's why global governance is so critical. I think nowadays the only legitimate source of violence is if it's authorized by the United Nations. That doesn't mean that governments or even local police forces don't have the right to use force sometimes, but they have to exist within a legal framework that is nowadays an international legal framework rather than a national framework. And I think in particular, whether it's at regional level, the European Union or the African Union, or whether it's at an international level, the United Nations or even NATO, there have to be security capabilities available to be rushed to places like Haiti or Afghanistan when needed to protect people. And they may require military forces, but largely they're going to be like global emergency forces, ambulances, firemen, those kinds of people. They might need policemen too. And they're not about fighting wars, they're about protecting people and enforcing the law. I mean, at the moment, there's a huge problem in that military forces think their job is fighting enemies. Actually, their job is protecting people and enforcing the law. And we tend to focus on threats which involve enemies, hostile states, terrorism. Of course, terrorism is deeply worrying, but this way of focusing on terrorism actually makes it worse. It doesn't help us. If we're really serious about terrorism, we need to create a secure world in which people who act in a terroristic way can be arrested. I think the role of research is both to study these situations, analyse them, put forward proposals, but I think the only way those proposals are effective is if they do actually respond to people's demands, if people can engage with them, if they can provide the basis of alternative ways of understanding the world. And I think that's really what the aim of our centre or the aim of the Journal of Global Policy is, to try to get across ways of understanding the world that really influence policymakers. I think the core areas are trying to understand local situations from a local perspective, trying through a combination of political science and anthropology to really understand what's going on in places like Afghanistan and Eastern Congo. I think that's the first core need. I think there's a second need, which is really to think about technology. Our armed forces are very obsessed with high-tech weapon systems, which actually cost huge amounts and prevent us from doing the sorts of things we should be doing. So I think there needs to be some analysis of that. There needs to be an analysis of budgets and the way how much we spend and how we spend affects the economic climate.